Welcome in, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into Allison Holker's memoir, This Fun.
Oh, yeah.
It came out just a couple of weeks ago, February 5th.
Wow.
And I don't know about you, but it was really jarring.
Oh, yeah.
The contrast between their public image and then what Allison reveals about their life behind the scenes.
You know, it really makes you think about what we see on social media and how much of it is real. You know what I mean? Like, are we really seeing the full picture?
Right. And what was so fascinating about this book is that it wasn't just about, Stephen's struggles.
Right.
It went into Allison's past.
Yeah.
And her own traumatic experiences, and then also even like behind the scenes at the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Absolutely.
And the complexities of, their finances and their relationship and their whole social media presence. It's a lot to unpack. And so we're going to try to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to be sensitive.
Absolutely.
This is a real loss. This is a real family.
Of course.
And so this deep dive is not about gossip. It's about trying to understand this incredibly human story and maybe even challenge some of our assumptions about mental health and about fame and about, the cost of it all.
For sure. And one of the things that was really powerful in the book for me was how open Allison was about her own traumatic experience when she was just 17.
Yeah. Being taken advantage of by this older man, especially at that age,
and
especially in that world, in that industry.
Absolutely. In the dance world. It's something that unfortunately happens a lot.
And her regret for not speaking out at the time.
Right.
Which I think a lot of people can relate to.
For sure.
And it also highlights how important it is to create environments where people, especially young people, feel safe to come forward and to share their stories.
Absolutely. To feel empowered, to speak up.
Exactly.
And to know that they'll be heard and believed.
Yeah, it really does make you think about the pressures, especially when you're in, a very public-facing career and, kind of have to put on this happy face all the time.
For sure.
Well, and speaking of public image, let's talk about how Allison and Stephen met, because the book actually reveals that the official So You Think You Can Dance love story wasn't the whole truth.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they actually met 5 years before that.
Really?
In a party.
Okay.
Which paints a very different picture.
Yeah, totally.
And it's kind of funny because Allison describes Stephen, he had piercings and a mohawk.
Oh, wow.
When they first met. And, it's so different than the image.
Yeah, than the image we know.
We all know, right? And, it makes me think, were they even at that point kind of starting to shape the narrative?
Right, like crafting their public image from the very beginning.
Well, almost right.
That's interesting.
Like even before they were really together.
Yeah.
And then even after they fell for each other, there's this story in the book about a memorable meetup, shall we say, during the Glee Live tour in Dublin.
Wow.
And get this, they almost got caught in the scaffolding
above
the stage.
Way.
Yeah, it's very playful and rebellious,
Right.
But again, you're left wondering,
were they doing this on purpose? Like, was this a conscious effort to create this
image, right?
This adventurous, passionate couple image.
And it ties into this bigger theme of their public image as this, like, perfect family.
Right.
Which, as we know, can be
such a heavy burden.
A very heavy burden to carry.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, it seems, for Stephen.
You can imagine how the constant praise for his positivity and, the pressure to be on all the time, especially on social media, like, could that have created some sort of internal conflict for him?
Yeah. Did he ever feel like he could just be himself?
Right.
Like not have to be.
Not have to be on.
Witch boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then you add to that the Ellen DeGeneres show ending in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge disruption to his routine.
Yeah, a major change.
And potentially, a source of disappointment for him.
Yeah, because he was so used to that structure and that validation, and then suddenly it's gone.
Yeah.
And then there's also, the fact that he might have wanted to take over as host.
Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, that could have been a tough pill to swallow.
Right. So maybe feeling a little lost, a little disillusion.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's right around the time that he decides to try ayahuasca.
Right. Seeking answers, maybe trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah, like trying to maybe reconnect with himself in the midst of all this.
Yeah.
Change and upheaval.
Absolutely.
But the ayahuasca experience seems to have backfired.
Yeah, unfortunately.
According to Allison.
Yeah, she actually describes a shift in his energy afterwards.
Right.
Almost like a dimmer switch,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Going back and forth between light and dark.
Yeah, and it makes you think about, seeking quick fixes for these really complex emotional issues.
Absolutely. And especially with something as powerful as ayahuasca,
Right.
the integration process, the work you do afterwards to make sense of it all is crucial.
Right.
And it's a little concerning that he left the retreat early. Maybe without that integration, those issues weren't fully addressed.
Yeah. Potentially even exacerbated.
It's possible.
And then there's the revelation that kind of shook everyone to the core.
The drug use.
The drug use,
right.
Finding psychedelic mushrooms
Yeah.
and other substances in the home after Stephen's passing.
It really challenges that image of the happy-go-lucky guy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It makes you wonder what was really going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, and what role, if any, that played in his death.
Absolutely.
Especially because the autopsy report actually stated
right.
no drugs or alcohol were found in his system at the time.
So it adds another layer of complexity to an already tragic situation.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder what led him to experiment with those substances in the first place.
Right. Was it self-medication? Was there something else going on?
Right. Was it a cry for help?
It's like we're putting together this puzzle,
yeah,
but we're missing a bunch of pieces.
Exactly. We have these glimpses into their lives, but ultimately we can't know for sure what was happening in Stephen's mind.
And maybe that's part of the point that Allison's trying to make.
Maybe.
That we just don't know.
Right. We can't always know what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, even with people who
especially have it all.
Yeah.
Right? They may be struggling in ways that we can't even comprehend.
Absolutely. So let's talk about those final days leading up to his passing, because Allison really does lay it all out in the book.
Mm-hmm.
The seemingly happy anniversary trip to Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
You know, conversations about having more children, buying a sculpture together.
Right.
Her sharing a song that she had written for him.
It's almost like watching a movie where, the ending is tragic, but the characters are still blissfully unaware.
Yeah.
It's really poignant.
And then there are these details that, in hindsight, take on a whole different meaning.
Right.
The black Prada suit that he gifted her.
Yeah.
It's hard not to wonder if that was, symbolic.
Yeah.
Or a way for him to say goodbye without saying the word.
It's completely understandable that Allison would look back on those moments and search for meaning.
Yeah.
Try to find clues in everything he did and said.
Right.
Grief can make us question everything.
Absolutely.
And re-examine every interaction.
Right. And then there's that awful day when he went missing.
Right.
The unanswered calls.
Yeah.
The frantic searching. The gut-wrenching realization that something was terribly wrong.
It's a reminder of how quickly life can change.
Yeah.
How fragile happiness can be.
And that mental health struggles can be invisible.
Absolutely.
Even to those closest to us.
We may think we know someone.
Yeah.
But we can never fully understand what they're going through.
Right. And sometimes those battles are fought in silence, hidden behind smiles, and carefully curated personas.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the aftermath of his death and the really complex dynamics that unfolded.
Especially with his family.
Especially with his family.
It's a difficult but important part of the story to explore.
Absolutely.
And it's a reminder, too, that even in shared grief, perspectives and ways of coping can be really different.
Right.
And Allison's memoir that doesn't shy away from those tensions.
No, it doesn't.
Between her and Stephen's family after his passing.
Yeah, right from the start, there were disagreements about the funeral arrangement.
Right. Specifically, the issue of an open casket.
Yeah.
And Allison's request for NDAs for anyone who viewed it.
It makes sense that she wanted to protect his privacy.
Right. Especially with how he died and the potential for images to be,
circulated online.
Yeah, exactly. But for his family, particularly his mother, Connie, it felt like an attempt to control the narrative.
Right.
And to exclude them from properly mourning their son.
It was such a clash of cultures almost.
Oh, yeah.
Allison coming from Hollywood where image control is everything.
Right.
And then Stephen's family having more traditional views about grieving.
And honoring the deceased.
Yeah, and those cultural differences seem to have fueled the conflict.
Yeah, you can see how deeply hurt his mother was when she went on social media to voice her disapproval.
And accusing Allison of, misrepresenting Stephen and causing further pain to the family.
Yeah, it just shows how quickly things can escalate in the midst of grief.
When there's already tension.
Right, especially when there are these pre-existing tensions or different expectations about how things should be handled.
Yeah, and it seems like the disagreements extended beyond just the funeral.
Oh, yeah. Allison talks about being criticized for missing a family reunion.
Oh, wow.
Which she claims she wasn't even invited to.
Oh, my gosh.
It's hard to know the full truth, but these back-and-forth accusations really paint a picture of a fractured relationship.
It makes you think about, blended families.
Right.
And the added layer of complexity that they face especially when dealing with loss.
Absolutely. And then there's this really troubling allegation from one of Stephen's family members who remains unnamed in the book.
Right.
That they directly blamed Allison for his death.
Oh, gosh. That is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
On top of everything else, to have to cope with that.
Right. To carry that burden.
And imagine that.
It speaks to the intensity of the emotions involved, you know?
Right.
The rawness of their grief.
And even though Allison says that she forgives this person,
right.
You know, it's clear that the wound is still there.
Yeah, it runs deep.
It's a reminder that grief doesn't always bring people closer.
Right.
Sometimes it creates these divides that just can't be bridged.
And it really underscores the importance of empathy and communication.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard.
Right.
Everyone grieves differently, and finding a way to navigate those differences, especially within a family, is so crucial to healing.
Absolutely. So now shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
The book also sheds light on their financial reality.
Right.
Which is something that a lot of people probably didn't expect.
Yeah, there was this assumption that they were wealthy.
Right.
Given their careers and their public image.
The perfect couple.
Right. But Allison reveals that Stephen was actually struggling financially.
Wow.
And that she was left with a substantial tax burden.
It's a reminder that we often project our own assumptions onto others.
For sure. Especially those in the public eye.
Yeah, we see the Instagram posts, the glamorous events, and we think...
Right. We assume a certain level of wealth.
They must be rich.
Exactly. And it might not be the case at all.
And it makes you question, you know,
right.
the authenticity of what we see on social media.
Yeah. How often are we being presented with a carefully constructed image that's hiding the reality of financial strain or personal struggles?
Absolutely. And for Allison, this financial burden adds another layer of stress.
Oh, absolutely.
To an already unimaginable situation.
Yeah, and it's really admirable that she's decided to donate all the proceeds from the book to the Move with Kindness Foundation.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful way to honor Stephen's legacy.
Absolutely.
And to continue his mission of spreading kindness and joy.
And speaking of Stephen's legacy, one of the things that I think is so important about this book is how it really reignites this conversation about mental health.
Right.
You know, his story tragically forces us to confront these really uncomfortable truths about the hidden struggles that so many people are facing.
Absolutely. It challenges our assumptions about who's supposed to be happy, who's supposed to have it all together.
Right.
Stephen, with his infectious smile and seemingly boundless energy, he was the epitome of positivity for so many people.
Yeah, he was.
And yet, beneath the surface, he was battling these demons that most people never even knew about.
And it's a stark reminder that mental illness doesn't discriminate.
It really doesn't.
It can affect anyone, regardless of their outward appearance, their success, their social standing.
Absolutely.
And it highlights how important it is to break down the stigma surrounding mental health.
Yeah.
To create spaces where people feel safe, to acknowledge their struggles, to ask for help.
And to be vulnerable without fear of judgment.
Exactly. And Allison also shares these incredibly poignant moments where she describes feeling Stephen's presence.
Yes.
Even after his death.
Yeah. Visiting her in dreams, offering apologies, expressing his love.
It's so touching.
It is.
And it speaks to the enduring power of love and connection, even beyond the physical realm.
And these dreams seem to bring her comfort, you know, a sense that he's still watching over her and their children.
It's heartbreaking, but it's also hopeful.
Right.
At the same time.
It acknowledges the immense pain of loss.
Yeah.
But it also offers this glimmer of solace.
Yeah.
A reminder that the bonds we forge with loved ones can transcend death.
It also highlights the complexities of grief.
Yes.
You know, how it can manifest in unexpected ways and how it can be this really long and winding journey.
With no clear destination.
Yeah, and Allison is clearly still processing her grief.
Right.
You know, navigating the anger, the sadness, the confusion.
Yeah.
And ultimately trying to find her own way to honor Stephen's memory while also learning to live without him.
Absolutely. And then there's the revelation that perhaps carries the most weight of all the discovery of Stephen's childhood trauma.
This is where the story takes a really dark turn.
Yeah, it forces us to confront the long-lasting impact of abuse.
Yeah.
And the ways in which trauma can shape our lives.
And is particularly sensitive because this wasn't something that Stephen shared publicly during his lifetime.
It was a secret that he confided in a close friend.
Yeah.
And that friend shared those journal entries with Allison after his passing.
It raises so many questions about, you know, when and how we share someone else's story.
Yeah.
Especially when that person's no longer here to give consent.
Exactly. Or to offer their own perspective.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. And it really makes you question, you know, how we understand Stephen's journey.
Right.
We see these outward signs, like you said, the ayahuasca, the potential drug use.
Yeah.
But then learning about this childhood trauma,
it adds a whole other
dimension to the story, right?
It makes you think about, that dinner switch Allison was talking about.
Right.
Makes it even more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder how much, that unspoken pain contributed to his depression, his anxiety,
right,
his ultimate decision to end his life.
It underscores the fact that you just never really know what someone else is carrying.
Right. Behind those smiles.
Behind the smile.
Behind the public persona.
Right.
Could be these deep wounds that we're totally unaware of.
And Allison's decision to share this information about Stephen, even though it wasn't her story to tell, has sparked a lot of debate.
Oh, absolutely.
Some people feel like it was a violation of his privacy.
Right.
Other people, see it as this courageous act of raising awareness.
About abuse.
About the lasting impact of childhood abuse.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's a really complex ethical dilemma.
For sure.
No easy answers.
No.
But it does force us to have these really important conversations.
Right.
About the ripple effects of trauma and the importance of seeking help.
Absolutely. And the need for more understanding and compassion for people who are struggling.
One thing that struck me was how Allison's memoir really mirrors this broader conversation about mental health that we're having as a society.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've shifted from silence and stigma to being more open.
More open discussions.
Yeah, but there's still so much work to be done.
Oh, yeah, we're not there yet.
Right. It's like we're at this turning point where we're acknowledging that these issues exist.
Yeah.
But we're still trying to figure out how to best support people.
Yeah, how to create a culture where vulnerability is seen as a strength.
As a strength, not a weakness.
Exactly.
And that's where I think Stephen's story and Allison's willingness to share can really make an impact.
Right. It can open people's eyes and hearts.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
okay,
what do you think are the most important takeaways for our listeners?
I think it's just a reminder to approach everyone with kindness and empathy.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we never truly know what someone might be going through.
And that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to struggle. It's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely. Stephen's story is a tragic reminder of what can happen when we suffer in silence.
Right.
We need to create spaces where people feel safe to share their struggles.
Yeah.
To seek support and to know that they're not alone.
And if you're interested in learning more about the Move with Kindness Foundation, which Allison started in Stephen's honor, we encourage you to check out their website.
They're doing incredible work.
They are doing amazing work.
To support mental health initiatives.
Absolutely.
And to continue Stephen's legacy.
Yeah, this deep dive has been about so much more than just, unpacking a celebrity memoir.
It's about real life.
It's about confronting these really uncomfortable truths about mental health, about the pressure to maintain this perfect facade, and about the importance of human connection and compassion.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a reminder that behind the headlines, behind the social media posts, there were real people with real struggles.
And those struggles deserve our attention.
Our empathy and our support.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us.